Hi everyone, Justhany Metano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Danger Mouse and Black Thought project, Cheat Codes. This is a new collab between two absolute legends, spitter extraordinaire, Philly's own Black Thought of the Roots fame, who is teaming up with groundbreaking and game-changing producer, Danger Mouse. His collaborations over the years have proven to be some of the most significant in popular music. Gorillaz, Demon Days, Danger Doom, Gnarls Barkley, also Dark Night of the Soul with Sparkle Horse, and Cheat Codes here is shaping up to be yet another, as Black Thought brings it lyrically on pretty much every project he's involved with, whether that be a Roots record or some of the solo stuff he's been sculpting lately. And of course, hearing Danger Mouse back in a hip-hop production mode is going to be exciting. And believe me when I say this project does not disappoint, cause Black Thought and Danger Mouse both respectively put forward their best foot, and the artistic chemistry between these two just make them a match made in heaven. Not to mention there's some strategically placed and carefully chosen features across this project too. The production as well is classy and classic without sounding dated, textured and lo-fi without sacrificing too much fidelity or color. It's groovy, it's varied and tasteful too, like on the very dramatic and cinematic opener Sometimes, where Black Thought launches into a single verse among all of these grand and weepy, soulful hits of strings and vocals. Some lines even read like a really intense self-portrait. There's also a pretty murderous beat on the title track, with chunky kicks and toms, as well as these beautiful descending horn lines. A total and utter banger if there ever was one. Then the production on the darkest part is more of a boom bap standard, with some sweet piano chops, though I think on the whole it's a little bit hollow due to a lack of a strong bass line. Even Black Thought's voice on this track sounds a bit too monotone and in the distance, which is a shame because there are some standout bars from him and Raekwon on this cut too. It's really the super expressive vocal harmonies on the hook that end up stealing the show, oddly enough. No Gold Teeth by comparison is not nearly as hooky, but there's a bit more beef to it sonically with its fat, bassy rhythms, some elements of the drums that feel very loose and lo-fi as well. Meanwhile, Black Thought's voice feels like it was recorded on an iPhone speaker or something like that. Either way, how it's presented is raw as hell, which shows up not just in his voice, but his lyricism too. Saying his flow is so obese, it's springing a slow leak. From front to back on the track, he just does not let up. Meanwhile, Because is another standout, not just because of the luxurious soul samples on the guitars and drums, but the youthful lead vocals from Dylan Cartilage on the hook are a wonderful touch too. There are impressive verses on this track, not only just from Black Thought, but Joey Badass and also Russ. Yes, like everyone's favorite rapper to hate, Russ. We essentially get three stunners here, with Black Thought going in about cycles of poverty, violence, with some haunting imagery in the mix. Joey packs a similar energy into his verse, talking about brushes with violence in his youth and being surveilled by the police and the paranoia that brings. Meanwhile, Russ is rapping on this track about his very hot-headed ways, which the internet has had a field day with on multiple occasions, which he goes into with a lot of heart and some honest dissection. The haunting beat on the track Belize is a treat. The murky bass, shimmering keys, and kind of mournful horns make for the perfect foundation for a great and posthumous verse from the one and only MF Doom, which is laced with some classic self-referential bars. Though part of me does wonder if this verse was left from that Danger Doom era, as there are references in the bars to Danger as well as Brood Witch, which is a pretty classic Aqua Teen Hunger Force episode, which may make it feel a little out of place on this project, but still at the end of the day, because it's landing in that particular era of Doom's career, you know the writing and delivery is high quality. The cut Aquamarine with Michael Kiwanuka is grand and beautiful, cinematic, just like the intro cut. The dusty and droning strings and keys on this track sound like a hero out of a spaghetti western coming back for vengeance against the outlaws that took over his town. Mike subtly sung bars about everything burning down, closing his eyes, and enemies being all around just kind of enhanced that experience. Then Black Thought's bars here really met the moment in terms of addressing things like evolution, the human condition, spirituality. We also have the short and contemplative Identical Deaths, which is okay, it breezes by a bit. But moving on from here, the last leg of this project has some bops too. Strangers, the groove on this track is honestly, to my ears, indescribable. We get these muddy tones stuttering flawlessly across these massive drums, oppressively thick and loud bass. The whole thing rolls so fluidly, it doesn't even feel like a loop. It's hypnotic as fuck. Now, snobs will probably look at A$AP Rocky here, nestled in between Black Thought, LP, and Killer Mike, on this cut and think, what the hell is he doing here? But in fact, Rocky does hold his own without even breaking a sweat, with some cool flow switch-ups and hilarious references to Dr. Seuss and broken iPhones. The surrounding verses feature a lot of bark, 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 but it's really Killer Mike who I think comes through the most cold-blooded, going as far as to say he'll pop you with the same pistol they shot Reagan with. Then there's Close to Famous, which I think is honestly a candidate for the worst beat on this project. What is this? I get that aesthetically it does feel in line with everything else here in terms of the tone and timbre of the bass, the percussion, but the finer details of this track are horrid. There is this very bong bong bass line whose groove is just nowhere to be found. We also have some pitchy wheezing organ chords, just two really, that are holding on for dear life. The drums barely sync up with everything on top of them, and what sounds like a very deep synthetic kick is completely mismatched with the ramshackle hi-hat and snare. The vibes are rancid. The vibes are rancid. Thankfully, the great Conway the Machine is a treat on the song Saltwater, which is soundtracked by the kind of eerie boom bap beat that's great for a Griselda verse. Black Thought brings some heady bars about depicting younger rappers relishing street life and fast money, and that ultimately being their undoing, though he doesn't paint this commentary as an attempt on his part to reach out or illustrate a point, because he says on this verse that you can't bullshit a bullshitter, which I think is a pretty grim statement on the futility of trying to do anything or say anything of significance with your music. Not to say that you shouldn't try, but you know, again, it's a pretty dark outlook. Meanwhile, Conway's grim bars skip rope across the beat, making references to shootings, traps, drugs, late hours. It's kind of standard for Griselda, but you get what you pay for, I think. There's a pretty strong closer on this LP too. There's a grand sense of finality in Black Thought's verse. I can't say these tracks came together in a super holistic way as I kind of digest them and look back on them, but regardless, the vast majority of the cuts on this thing are very good. I think Black Thought and Danger Mouse here just made some killer cuts, assembled them into a tight track list, and given how high the baseline of talent these two are typically working with is, I don't know if we needed much more than that from them. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this record. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Black Thought, Danger Mouse, forever.